nobody would ever treat her like that as long as I was around. Ever.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. In this episode, we're going to look into the sticky and tricky area of SA. And once again, in order to do that, what we need to do is withdraw. We need to get to a minimum safe distance in order to interrogate these sensitive subjects. Today's day 53 since 5-year-old Summer Wells disappeared on June 15th from the Rogersville area of East Tennessee. Now, the question I'm asking in this episode is the same question Tammy Lee asked Chris Watts. Did Shanann do something? And so it's the same thing, just in terms of this case. Did Don do something, right? Now, sometimes in order to understand the unknown, invisible, known unknowns in a case, we have to withdraw and look at these things from a distance. We want to get ourselves to a minimum safe distance so that we can see the woods. We're not lost in the trees. And this is a case where it is quite easy to get lost in the details, right? So before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do like, share, leave a comment. As I've said before, I don't disable comments, but if they are disabled, you can head to Twitter using the hashtag SummerWells and you can address your questions and comments there. And let's get started. So one way that we get ourselves out of the trees, out of the minutiae, out of the murk is by referencing other similar cases with other similar scenarios. Now, you might think that doesn't make any sense. Now, why on earth, if you're trying to find something out, would you actually look away from this case? Why on earth, if you were trying to find some detail that you were struggling to understand or some sort of invisible, unknown aspect, why on earth would you withdraw completely out of the case and look away from it to another case? Shouldn't you look closer? Shouldn't you look deeper? And you do want to do that, but in order to do that, you first look away, right? And in the true crime rocket science refers to this process of finding similar patterns elsewhere as intertextualities. It's a true crime rocket science ism. Now, what I'm about to address isn't new. It's common cause. It's been acknowledged by all relevant parties, certainly as far as I know. If I'm wrong, people can perhaps set me straight, right? So, although I want to get to Don, I'm going to provide a little bit of insight into Candace using this system, I guess, of intertextuality, right? And then we're going to deal with Don. So, in terms of Candace, we do seem to see broad intertextualities with the Casey Anthony case, right? Boozing, partying, having fun, hanging out, all while having a small, vulnerable child in tow. So what do you do about a little child when you want to engage in risky, inappropriate behavior? What do you do when you've got a little girl with you, but you want to insist on doing certain things that, well, should a mother be doing under those circumstances? If you're going to insist on going out, you're going to insist on consuming certain things. What do you do? Well, perhaps you party anyway, or perhaps realizing the efficacy of substances. So you using the substances yourself, well, wouldn't you think, I know how this works. Maybe I can use this on that person, and then I can get a certain kind of reaction, right? I know what impact this has on me. Well, what if I could medicate, sedate that person, almost playing the doctor role, right? Or the drug dealer role in a different sense. And so, do you give the burdensome child something that will settle her down? And then, does something go wrong? While the child is settled down and you doing something else, what happens if the child rouses? What happens if the child doesn't rouse? Does something go wrong in the context of a swimming hole with slippery mud, underwater debris, and perhaps the biggest question of all, a child that hasn't actually been taught how to swim. And I must say, I find that crazy in this particular case. I find it crazy that it hasn't been really brought up or addressed really by anyone. I haven't heard law enforcement talking about it. I really haven't seen or heard any of the other channels talking about it either. But to me, it's perhaps the most critical question of this case, which is, could Summer swim? Right? Could she swim? We haven't heard Macbeth say anything about it. We haven't heard Candace say anything about it. We haven't heard Don say anything about it. It's quite a simple question. Could Summer swim? So I don't know whether that side of the equation is rocket science. And I also don't know whether Candace's side of the story is so difficult to fathom. And as I say, you just look at the Casey Anthony case and you see so many parallels. Substance abuse, a small child disappears inexplicably, and then quite a long period where you just don't know anything, don't see anything, and quite a lot of kind of mischief and economy with the truth, to put it mildly. And so that brings us to Don's side. What about Don's side? So one question I think we need to address is why Don's been so active in this case in the media, on social media, going out of his way to talk about what happened, including his epic fail call, the 100-minute long call with Chris McDonough on August the 1st. Now, let me just be quite explicit about what we're talking about here. We want to deal with a known unknown, an area that we just don't know for sure what was going on between Don and Summer. And we start off with that process by pulling all the way back and saying, why is Don so active in this case? You know, why does he appear on camera first before Candace with his son at his side and giving multiple interviews? He's very present on Facebook, a lot more than Candace is. Grandma isn't present at all. And then we also see him making appearances in church, the SDA church. He prayed really early on. We've recently seen him make an appearance at a prayer vigil. Why is Don so involved? Because if you think about it in another way, Don has a criminal record, and you could imagine him almost taking a back seat to all this, saying, washing his hands, basically saying, you know what, I wasn't even there. I was at work. So, I'm very worried about Summer, but it's not really got anything to do with me. You could almost imagine that being quite a good tactic. You can almost imagine that being quite a good strategy, just to say, you know what, I wasn't there. I don't know what's going on. I think she was abducted, but, it's got nothing to do with me, and saying, I don't really want to talk about it. It's something that Candace knows more about, kind of thing. And yet that isn't the route that he's taken. Don has taken control, right? Even though, as I say, he wasn't in the area when Summer was abducted, and Don's certain that was what happened, even though he wasn't there. The question again is, why is Don campaigning so hard? Why isn't Candace campaigning so hard when she apparently was the last person with Summer? Why is Don stepping forward again and again to take control of the narrative? And I think one way to answer that question is from this global perspective, to say, what is actually going on here, right? So one of the pieces of the puzzle is this troubling area of abuse, not substance abuse per se, but certainly it's not abuse within a vacuum. It's not like you take substance abuse completely out of the picture. It's abuse and substance abuse. It's substance abuse and abuse, right? There's the fabric of the backstory, the abuse going back into their formative years. I'm talking about Candace's and Don's and their siblings, and poverty also going into their backstory, their respective backstories. But then there's also the shadow of substances in the background as well. They sort of intermingle with one another, making what is already dark darker, what is already shadowy even murkier and more troubling. So the piece we want to examine here is this thing about Summer sharing a bed with Don every night for the past 5 years. Now, according to his stepsister Mary, and I'll put a link to what she says in the description, Don molested her since she was 5 years old. Now, if that's true, it might not be true, but if that's true, then you have an intertextuality within Don's own frame of reference, right? You're not going intertextually to another case. You're going intertextually within Don's own lifetime, right? And so would Don have been reminded about what happened with Mary when Summer was the same age? What do you think? There's also been rumored that Don called his father. I'm trying to get confirmation on this. I'm just struggling a little bit. But I guess, and I guess that's Mary's father's too. As I understand it, Don called his father to confess to what I've just mentioned. Apparently, he said he was 12 years old at the time, or I think Mary said he was 12 years old at the time, and Mary was the same age as Summer. What I've heard by the grapevine is that Don actually told his father he was even younger, and that there wasn't anything strange about it. They had a relationship. I think he's trying to say it was consensual or something like that. I don't know, but I have heard that Don apparently called his father, I think, 4 days ago. Now, I wonder whether his father could confirm that. If there was a repeat to the cycle, and we've spoken about this idea of intergenerational poverty, could there have been intergenerational abuse as well? Does it move from a sister to a daughter? And if it does, and something happens to Summer, would there be a reason to hide that? Would there be a need to dress in white and show up at a prayer vigil and declare oneself good and want to surround oneself with good people and give a Sermon on the Mount and show oneself to be reformed and above reproach? Well, what do you think? So I'm not going to take it further than that. I'm going to be doing a interactive live with Stephanie and Bria on Sunday. That'll be at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, the usual time. On Sunday, an interactive discussion where we'll be trying to find some more certainty and clarity on what happened to Summer. So look out for that on Sunday, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I think that's 7 p.m. in the United Kingdom. Until then, take care, and I'll see you guys next time.